Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. When the water from the different rooms was finally let out through the halls, it appeared as if new rivers were rushing out to meet the waters of the ocean. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. In commenting on the cleansing of the Gujicha temple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the world leader, was personally giving instructions on how one should receive Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within one's cleansed and pacified heart. If one wants to see Krishna seated in his heart, he must first cleanse the heart, as prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. In this age, everyone's heart is especially unclean, as confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Pradyantakstyohya Padrani. To wash away all dirty things accumulated within the heart, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised everyone to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. The first result will be that the heart is cleansed, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17 confirms this statement. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Tridyantakstohya Badrani Vidunoti Surit Sadam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. If a devotee at all wants to cleanse his heart, he must chant and hear the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna. This is a simple process. Krishna himself will help cleanse the heart because he is already seated there. Krishna wants to continue living within the heart, and the Lord wants to give directions, but one has to keep his heart as clean as Lord Chaitanya kept the Gujicha temple. The devotee, therefore, has to cleanse his heart just as the Lord cleansed the Gujicha temple. In this way, one can be pacified and enriched in devotional service. If the heart is filled with straw, grains, and sand, weeds, or dust, in other words, anyabhilashitash purna, one cannot enthrone the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. The heart must be cleansed of all material motives, brought about through fruitive work, speculative knowledge, the mystic yoga system, and so many other forms of so-called meditation. The heart must be cleansed without ulterior motive. As Srila Rupa Goswami says, anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmanyavratam. In other words, there should not be any external motive. One should not attempt material upliftment, understanding the Supreme by speculative knowledge, fruitive activity, severe austerity and penance, and so on. All these activities are against the natural growth of spontaneous love of Godhead. As soon as these are present within the heart should be understood to be unclean and therefore unfit to serve as Krishna's sitting place. We cannot perceive the Lord's presence in our hearts unless our hearts are cleansed. A material desire is explained as a desire to enjoy the material world to its full extent. In modern language, this is called economic development. An inordinate desire for economic development is considered to be like straws and grains of sand within the heart. If one is overly engaged in material activity, the heart will always remain disturbed. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, samsara vishanale diva nishi hiya jwale judaiti na kainu upai. In other words, endeavor for material opulence is against the principle of devotional service. Material enjoyment includes activities such as great sacrifice for auspicious activity, charity, austerities, elevation to the higher planetary system, and even living happily within the material world. Modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. When this dust is agitated by the whirlwind of fruitive activity, it overcomes the heart. Thus the mirror of the heart is covered with dust. There are many desires to perform auspicious and inauspicious activities, but people do not know how life after life they are keeping their hearts unclean. One who cannot give up the desire for fruit of activity is understood to be covered by the dust of material contamination. Karmis generally think that the interaction of fruit of activities can be counteracted by another karma or fruit of activity. This is certainly a mistaken conception. If one is deluded by such a conception, he is cheated by his own activity. Such activities have been compared to an elephant's bathing. An elephant may bathe very thoroughly, but as soon as it comes out of the river, it immediately takes some sand from the land and throws it all over its body. If one suffers due to his past fruit of activities, he cannot counteract his suffering by performing auspicious activities. The sufferings of human society cannot be counteracted by material plans. The only way these sufferings can be mitigated is by Krishna consciousness. When one takes to Krishna consciousness and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, the cleansing of the heart begins. When the heart is actually cleansed, one can clearly see the Lord sitting there without any disturbance. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord confirms that he sits within the heart of a pure devotee. Sadhavo hridayam mahyam, sadhu nam hridayam tvaham. Impersonal speculation, monism, merging into the existence of the Supreme, speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and meditation are all compared to grains of sand. They simply cause irritation to the heart. No one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such activities, nor do we give the Lord a chance to sit in our hearts peacefully. Rather, the Lord is simply disturbed by them. Sometimes yogis and jnanis in the beginning take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as a way to begin their various practices. But when they falsely think that they have attained release from the bondage of material existence, they give up chanting. They do not consider that the ultimate goal is the form of the Lord or the name of the Lord. Such unfortunate creatures are never favored by the personality of Godhead, for they do not know what devotional service is. Lord Krishna describes them in the Bhagavad Gita in this way: Tan aham dvashata kroran samsareshu naradaman shripam yajastram ashubhan asurasweva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. By his practical example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown us that all the grains of sand must be picked up thoroughly and thrown outside. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the outside of the temple, fearing that the grains of sand would again come within. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that even though one may become free from the desire for fruit of activity, sometimes the subtle desire for fruit of activity again comes into being within the heart. One often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity, but the contamination is so strong that it may later develop into misunderstanding, described as kutinati, fault-finding, and pratishtasha, the desire for name and fame and high position, jiva hingsa, envy of other living entities, nishidachara, accepting things forbidden in the Shastra, kama, desire for material gain, and puja, hankering for popularity. The word kutinati means duplicity. As an example of pratishtasha, one may attempt to imitate Srila Haridas Thakur by living in a solitary place. One's real desire may be for name and fame. In other words, one thinks that fools will accept one to be as good as Haridas Thakur just because one lives in a solitary place. These are all material desires. A neophyte devotee is certain to be attacked by other material desires as well, namely desires for women and money. In this way, the heart is again filled with dirty things and becomes harder and harder, like that of a materialist. Gradually, one desires to become a reputed devotee or an avatar incarnation. The word jivahimsa, envy of other living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Preaching work is described as parupakar, welfare activity for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. If one stops preaching and simply sits down in a solitary place, he is engaging in material activity. If one desires to make a compromise with the Mayavadis, he is also engaged in material activity. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. By acting as a professional guru, mystic yogi, or miracle man, one may cheat and bluff the general public and gain fame as a wonderful mystic. But all this is considered to be dust, straw, and grains of sand within the heart. In addition, one should follow the regulative principles and not desire illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, or meat. To give us practical instructions, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cleansed the temple twice. His second cleansing was more thorough. The idea was to throw away all the stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. He cleansed the temple with firm conviction, as is evident from his using his own personal garments for cleansing. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see personally that the temple was thoroughly cleansed to the standard of clean marble. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. Even though all dirty things may be cleansed away, sometimes subtle desires remain in the mind for impersonalism, monism, success, and the four principles of religious activity, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. All these are like spots on clean cloth. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to cleanse all of these away. By his practical activities, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu informed us how to cleanse our hearts. Once the heart is cleansed, we should invite Lord Sri Krishna to sit down, and we should observe the festival by distributing prasadam and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to teach every devotee by his personal behavior. Everyone who spreads the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts a similar responsibility. The Lord was personally chastising and praising individuals in the course of the cleansing. And those who are engaged as acharyas must learn from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu how to train devotees by personal example. The Lord was very pleased with those whom could cleanse the temple by taking out undesirable things accumulated within. This is called anartha nivriti, cleansing the heart of all unwanted things. Thus the cleansing of the Gudicha Mandir was conducted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to let us know how the heart should be cleansed and soothed to receive Lord Sri Krishna and enable him to sit within the heart without disturbance. Hari Hari. We'll take 4 reflections or questions, just 4. 2 in here and 2 outside. 1, 2.
Hare Krishna. You were mentioning that statement by Srila Prabhupada that if we try to reverse or fight destiny, then we enter into the deepest darkness of nescience. How to understand that with, like, we try to preserve our body or we try to do the best we can, otherwise we can say, well, it was destiny, it was meant to happen.
Providential, yeah.
Providential. So where do you draw the line not to pursue it and to let it go, or to fight it and to try to improve things.
That requires revelation. But just for point of information, it was Brahma who said that. Prabhupada just commented on it and said we have to learn to tolerate such things. And it is an excellent question. It comes to a point where, as you just said, you do the best you can. And then you have to see in your heart if you're raging against the machine, or if there's actually a way in which, you've done your due diligence, now be patient. And, you already rang the doorbell 10 times, so just stand there and wait till somebody comes home, kind of thing. Don't keep pushing it out of spite. Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question. How can we, or I, reconcile this idea of it's an offense, no one should accept obeisances in the temple of the Lord before the deity, and also the fact of Tadiya, the Lord's devotees are more worshipful, so to say, and I've often seen exalted devotees even giving Bhagavatam class, and when another exalted personality walks in, they stop the class, stand up and pay obeisances. How do we reconcile these two?
Well, first of all, in the Arjuna Padati, it's mentioned that if you're doing deity worship and an advanced devotee comes, you should stop doing deity worship. You should go greet the Vaishnav. You should make sure the Vaishnav's satisfied. Is he hungry? Did he travel? Does he have a place to sit? Has a place to stay? And take care of him. Then you can go back to your deity worship. That's an injunction in the Padatis, in worshipping the deities. And Mad Bhakta Puja Bhyadika, Krishna says those who worship my devotees, that's the best kind of worship. As far as offering obeisances in the temple, first of all, when an exalted personality comes, one should stand up. That's the injunction, to show respect. It said, if you don't stand up, then the life airs get crushed in your body. And as far as reconciliation goes, there's a protocol for worshiping the deity and seeing that the deity is properly worshipped. Part of that is there's an awareness, for instance, in the nectar devotion, awareness of the Lord's presence there. So one should not talk before the deity. That doesn't mean you can't talk Krishna Katha or discuss your service, but you shouldn't blab. It's just stand there and talk about anything mundane. So there's an awareness that you're there in front of the deity, and that's why you shouldn't take selfies in front of, or take pictures of your families. You should not do that kind of thing, just being aware that the Lord's there to be seen and to see us and to worship. And as far as offering obeisances or washing the feet of a devotee in front of the temple, the curtain should be closed. So then that can be done. In an ordinary course, we have Bhagavatam class, or we offer obeisances, Vanchakalpadurbrishcha, and so forth. It's a matter of timing, really. I mean, usually we do that after the curtains are closed, right after we worship Tulsi Devi. And by the way, it's better to offer proper obeisances than to do a half obeisance. A lot of times, this is kind of a side point, but I just thought I'd bring it up. If you're sitting there and then you're going to offer obeisance, and you do one of those you got your bead back on your hand and you sort of just kind of like half touch the floor with your head or elbow or something like that. Why bother? Just either do it properly or don't do it at all. Because obeisances are meant to be heartfelt and offered properly. Don't do them halfway. Don't do them while you're carrying a bunch of stuff in your hands and then do one of those things. So Prabhupada was asked the same question because sometimes, he had Guru Puja in front of the deities. So Prabhupada's stature is unique within our organization or anywhere else for that matter. So in the temple room, when we do Guru Puja and the deities are open, Prabhupada's always there on this Vyasasana. We're always offering obeisances before him because he's the founder Acharya and kind of a guru avatar type of person. Not type of person, he's a guru avatar. Like he's a very special, unique category. So we have that, but we're very careful. Otherwise, if you're going to offer obeisances to your spiritual master in front of the deities, just do so in your mind, or do something simple but not demonstrative in front of the deities as per this instruction. And if there's going to be some kind of worship, the curtain should be closed first. So the simple answer to your question is you have to be thoughtful, and you have to be just aware that the deities are there, and that be careful, try to follow the regulations as best as possible. And if you're in a crowded room, as an example, and it's really hard to figure out which way to face to offer obeisances because they said left side in front of the deities or straight on towards your spiritual master, just try to offer obeisances somehow. And sometimes it's better not to, because you'll end up like putting your feet straight towards the deities or on somebody's head, and just for the sake of getting down on the floor, you may cause havoc. So be smart and just go like this. Those are a few thoughts. Take two from outside. Nitya Tarangani.
Maharaj, I have the measurements of Gundisha temple in feet.
Yeah, we have some engineers out there.
So the outer area, the whole Gundisha temple, is 432 feet in length, 322.5 feet in width. And the main temple is 54 feet in length and 45 feet in width. And the Kirtan hall is 48 feet in length and 45 feet in width. And I did little comparison. It's almost 2.5 times larger than a football field, the whole Gundisha temple.
I see. That's a little bigger than ISV, I think. Thank you very much, Nitya. Anything? We got more numbers. Go ahead.
Yes, I have one question from online audience. This is from Apara Gaurangi Mataji. Why do you often choose to read the Beda Kirtan chapter from Chaitanya Charitamrita as Gaur Purnima approaches? Is there any specific reason?
Because it's too nice. It's just such an example of the devotee interactions and the confluence of devotees coming for the first time to Jagannath Puri is such a glorious pastime. I like it. Okay, now we get... You have more? One more from outside? It's all you, Nitya Charangani.
Okay, I have some reflections from Christopher Stilwell. To wake up and hear Chaitanya Charitamrita with Vaisesika Das and the devotees in Kartik is so much wonderful. And
thank you, Christopher. Christopher Stilwell Ki Jai.
This is from Divyanga Prabhu. He's saying Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And last one from Daniela Chandrakanti. Hari Hari, this reading gives me life instead of fever I have. Especially I love the emergency session.
Haribol. Okay, Mukharvind, you're it. Last one for sure.
Maharaj, the whole section was amazing. One thing I remember that they say in the 116 it's called Pavitra Bhratsana. Means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whenever he saw that someone is not doing, he immediately chastised that person, not bearing him any grudge. Can you please elaborate, like how does it work? Like I know that if I chastise anyone, I have so much grudge, but how to reach to this?
You don't have any grudge.
This Pavitra
We're not
Brahsana.
buying it. You're a grudgeless person. Guileless and grudgeless. You know what a grudge is, right? It's a little animal. It's kind of like a badger. That's why that name, grudge. People carry them around, so the advice is go to the forest, drive up, and walk them. Just let them out. Let them run back free into the wilderness. Grudges, they bite too. You carry them, they'll bite you. They'll bite other people. So don't keep them as pets. Let them run free in the forest. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. And also the next verse also I like very much. He tell that when someone was doing well, he told, please teach this to others so they may act in the same way.
Yeah.
And I was just saying that our Sankirtan movement is so much like in Prabhupada times, as you mentioned many times, that whenever like he used to send Sankirtan parties to all over the different places that to teach that, and we are continuing the same mood. And I see that how Chaitanya Charitamrita is enacted in our Sankirtan in the modern day.
Thanks, Mukharvin, for bringing up that point. It's so important. The mood of, it's not what we do, it's how we do it that counts. And if we follow the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not bearing grudge, but showing people, giving correction, but this is Mukhya Prasada. You give correction, but you do it in such a way to uplift the person. And also, when you find somebody doing something great, then you engage them more and how to show more people how to do it. The main thing is that we like to expand service for the pleasure of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can see that he notices. He can tell when somebody's doing more. And if you're not doing more, then he likes to encourage. So we can do the same thing. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going on. And we're taking up at text number 136. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also cleansed the Nrsimha temple inside and out. Finally, he rested a few minutes and then began dancing. The Nrsimha temple is a nice temple just outside the Gudicha temple. In this temple, there is a great festival on the day of Nrsimha Chaturdashi. There is also a Nrsimha temple at Navadvip, where the same festival is observed, as described by Murari Gupta in his book Chaitanya Charita. All around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees performed congregational chanting. The Lord, just like a maddened lion, danced in the middle. As usual, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced, there were perspiration, trembling, fading, tears, jubilation, and roaring. Indeed, the tears from his eyes washed his body and those before him. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed the bodies of all the devotees with the tears from his eyes. The tears poured like the rains in the month of Shravana. The sky was filled with great and loud chanting of Sankirtan, and the earth shook from the jumping and dancing of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always liked the loud chanting of Swarup Damodar. Therefore, when Swarup Damodar sang, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and jumped high in jubilation. The Lord thus chanted and danced for some time. Finally, understanding the circumstances, he stopped. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Sri Gopal, the son of Advaitacharya, to dance. While dancing in static love, Sri Gopal fainted and fell to the ground unconscious. When Sri Gopal fainted, Advaitacharya hastily took him upon his lap. Seeing that he was not breathing, he became very much agitated. Advaitacharya and others began to chant the holy name of Lord Nrsimha and sprinkle water. The roaring of the chant was so great that it seemed to shake the entire universe. When the boy did not regain consciousness after some time, Advaitacharya and the other devotees began to cry. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed his hand on the chest of Sri Gopal and said loudly, "Gopal, stand up!" As soon as Gopal heard the voice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately came to his senses. All the devotees then began to dance, chanting the holy name of Hari. This incident has been described in detail by Vrindavandas Thakur, therefore I have described it only in brief. This is a matter of etiquette. If a previous acharya has already written about something, there's no need to repeat it for personal sense gratification or to outdo the previous acharya. Unless there is some definite improvement, one should not repeat. After taking rest, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees departed to take their baths. After bathing, the Lord stood on the bank of the lake and put on dry garments. After offering obeisances to Lord Nrsingadev, whose temple was nearby, the Lord entered a garden. In the garden, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down with the other devotees. Vaninath Roy then came and brought all kinds of Mahaprasadam. Kashi Mishra and Tulsi, not the same as Tulasi, the superintendent of the temple, brought as much prasadam as 500 men could eat. Seeing the large quantity of prasadam, which consisted of rice, cakes, sweet rice, and a variety of vegetables, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very satisfied. Among the devotees present with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, Advaita Acharya, and Nityananda Prabhu. Acharya Ratna, Acharya Nidhi, Srivas Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit, Shankara, Nandan Acharya, Raghava Pandit, and Vrkreshwar were also present. Receiving the permission of the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sat down. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his devotees sat on raised wooden seats. In this way, all the devotees sat down to take their lunch in consecutive lines, one beside the other. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was repeatedly calling, Haridas, Haridas, and at that time Haridas, standing at a distance, spoke as follows. Haridas Thakur said, "Let Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take his lunch with the devotees. Since I am abominable, I cannot sit down among you. Govinda will give me prasadam later outside the door." Understanding his mind, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not call him again. Swarup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda, Damodar Pandit, Kashishvar, Gopinath, Vaninath and Shankar distributed prasadam, and the devotees chanted the holy names at intervals. Lord Sri Krishna had previously taken his lunch in the forest, and that very pastime was remembered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just by remembering the pastime of Lord Sri Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was agitated by ecstatic love. By considering the time and circumstances, he remains somewhat patient. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You can give me the ordinary vegetable known as lapra vyanjana, and you may deliver to all the devotees better preparations like cakes, sweet rice, and amrita gutika." Lapra vyanjana is a combination of several green vegetables all mixed together. It is often mixed with rice and delivered to poor men. Amrita gutika is a preparation of thick puri mixed with condensed milk. It is also known as Amrita Rasavali. Since Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was omniscient, he knew what types of paraphernalia each person liked. He therefore had Swarup Damodar deliver these preparations to each devotee to his full satisfaction. Did you catch that last one? He knew what each person liked, and therefore he had Swarup Damodar deliver the specific things. That's first class, obviously. Jagadananda went to distribute prasadam, and suddenly he placed all the first class preparations on the plate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When such nice prasadam was put on the plate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord was outwardly very angry. Nonetheless, when the preparations were placed on his plate, sometimes by tricks and sometimes by force, the Lord was satisfied. When the food was thus delivered, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked at it for some time. Being afraid of Jagadananda, he finally ate something. The Lord knew that if he did not eat the food offered by Jagadananda, Jagadananda would certainly fast. Being afraid of this, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ate some of the prasadam he offered. Swarup Damodar Goswami then brought some excellent sweetmeats and, standing before the Lord, offered them to him. Swarup Damodar Goswami then said, "Just take a little of this Mahaprasadam and see how it is that Lord Jagannath has accepted it." Upon saying this, Swarup Damodar Goswami placed some food before the Lord, and the Lord, out of affection, ate it. Swarup Damodar and Jagadananda again and again offered the Lord some food. Thus they behaved affectionately with the Lord. This was very, very uncommon. The Lord made Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sit on his left side, and when Sarvabhauma saw the behavior of Swarup Damodar and Jagadananda, he smiled. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also wanted to offer Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya first-class food. Therefore, out of affection, he had the servers put first-class food on his plate again and again. Gopinath Acharya also brought first-class food and offered it to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya while speaking sweet words. After serving the Bhattacharya with first-class prasadam, Gopinath Acharya said, "Just consider what the Bhattacharya's previous mundane behavior was. Just consider how at present he is enjoying transcendental bliss." Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was previously a smarta brahmana, that is, one who strictly follows the Vedic principles on the mundane platform. On the mundane platform, one cannot believe that prasadam is transcendental, that Govinda is the original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or that a Vaishnava is a liberated person. These transcendental considerations are out of the ordinary Vedic scholar's jurisdiction. Most Vedic scholars are called Vedantists. These so-called followers of Vedanta philosophy consider the absolute truth to be impersonal. They also believe that a person born in a particular caste cannot change his caste until he dies and takes rebirth. The Smarta Brahmanas also reject the fact that Mahaprasadam, food offered to the deity, is transcendental and materially uncontaminated. Originally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was subjected to all the rules and regulations of the Vedic principles on the mundane platform. Now Gopinath Acharya pointed out how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had been converted by the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being converted, Sarvabhauma partook of prasadam with the Vaishnavas. Indeed, he sat by the side of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied to Gopinath Acharya, "I was simply a less intelligent logician, but by your grace I have received this opulence of perfection." But for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, "Who is so merciful? He has converted a crow into a Garuda. Who could be so merciful?" In the association of the jackals known as logicians, I simply continued to bark a resounding whoo, whoo. Now, from the same mouth, I'm chanting the holy names, Krishna, Hare. Whereas I once associated with the disciples of logic, all non-devotees, I'm now merged in the waves of the nectarian ocean of the association of the devotees. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, the word bahirmukh refers to a person who is very busy tasting material enjoyment. Such a person always poses himself as an enjoyer of the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Being attracted by external opulence, the non-devotee always forgets his intimate relationship with Krishna. Such a person does not like the idea of becoming Krishna conscious. This is explained by Srila Prahlad Maharaj in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.30-31. Matirna Krishna Parataksato Va Mito Pipadyeta Griha Bhatanam Adanta Gobir Vishatanta Mishram Punak Punascharvita Charvananam Nate Vidu Swarta Gatim Hi Vishnu Rashaya Paratamanina Andaya Tande Upaniyamanas Te te pita tantram udidam nibada. Materialists who are overly attracted to the material body, material world, and material enjoyment, who cannot control their material senses, are carried to the darkest regions of material existence. Such people cannot become Krishna conscious either by themselves or by congregational effort. Such people do not understand that the goal of life for a human being is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. A human life is especially meant for this purpose, and one has to go through all kinds of penances and austerities and set aside the propensity for sense gratification. Materialists always remain blind because they are always guided by blind rascals. A materialistic person considers himself free to act as he likes. He does not know that he is rigidly controlled by the stringent laws of nature, nor does he know that he has to transmigrate from one body to another and perpetually rot in the material existence. Such rascals and foolish people are lured by the prayers of their foolish leaders for sense gratification, and they cannot understand what is meant by Krishna consciousness. The material world exists outside the spiritual sky, and a foolish materialist cannot estimate the extent of this material sky. What then can he know of the spiritual sky? Materialists simply believe their imperfect senses and do not take instructions from the revealed scriptures. According to the Vedic civilization, one has to see through the authority of the revealed scriptures, Shastra Chakshu. One should see everything through the medium of the Vedic literature. In this way, one can distinguish between the spiritual world and the material world. Those who ignore such instructions cannot be convinced of the existence of the spiritual world. Because they have forgotten their spiritual identity, such materialists take this material world as the all in all. And therefore, they are called Bahir Mukh. What are they called? What does that mean? Focus on the externals. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "From your previous birth you have been in Krishna consciousness. Thus you love Krishna so much that simply by your association we are all developing Krishna consciousness. Thus there is no one within these three worlds, save for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is always so willing to increase the glories of the devotees and give them satisfaction." In this regard, one should consult the discussion between Kapiladev and Devahuti on the subject matter of devotional service. This is found in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what verse is that? In this regard, that there is no one within the three worlds save for Sri Chaitanya, who is able, always so willing to increase the glories of the devotees and give them satisfaction. There is no, I remember some of, no one is so, there's some superlatives mentioned there about the Supreme Lord in the beginning of that chapter. In the 3rd canto? We'll look later. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then, but I just didn't know which verse Prabhupada was referring to. Do you have the same conundrum, or do you have a clear idea of what he's talking about? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then took all the remnants of food offered to Jagannath, such as cakes and sweet rice, and distributed them to all the other devotees, calling them individually. Sri Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu sat side by side, and when prasadam was being distributed, they engaged in a type of mock fighting. First Advaita Acharya said, "I'm sitting in line with an unknown mendicant, and because I am eating with him, I do not know what kind of destination is awaiting me." Sri Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the renounced order of life. Consequently, he does not recognize discrepancies. As a matter of fact, a sannyasi is not affected by eating food from anywhere and everywhere. According to the Shastra, there is no discrepancy in a sannyasi's eating at another's house. But for a householder brahmana, this kind of eating is faulty. It is not proper for householders to dine with those whose previous birth, family, character, and behavior are unknown. Nityananda Prabhu immediately refuted Srila Advaita Acharya, saying, "You are a teacher of impersonal monism, and the monistic conclusion is a great hindrance to progressive pure devotional service." One who participates in your impersonal monistic philosophy does not accept anything but the one Brahman. The impersonal monist does not believe that God is the only object of worship and that the living entities are his eternal servants. According to the monists, God and the devotee may be separate in the material state, but when they are spiritually situated, there is no difference between them. This is called Advaita Siddhanta. The conclusion of the monist. Monists consider devotional service of the Lord to be material activity. Therefore, they consider such devotional activities to be the same as karma, or fruit of activity. This monistic mistake is a great stumbling block on the road to devotional service. Actually, this discussion between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda was a mock fight to serve as a great instruction for all devotees. Sri Nityananda Prabhu wanted to point out that Advaita Acharya, a pure devotee, did not agree with the monistic conclusion. The conclusion of devotional service is Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yajnanamadvayam rameti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. This conclusion is not the same as that of the monists. Sri Advaita Acharya was given the title Acharya because he spread the bhakti cult, not the philosophy of monism. The true conclusion of Advaita Siddhanta, expressed at the very beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi 1.3, is not the same as the philosophy of the monist. Here, Advaita Siddhanta means Advaya Gyan, or oneness in variety. Actually, Srila Nityananda Prabhu was praising Srila Advaita Acharya through friendly mock fighting. He was giving the Vaishnava conclusion in terms of the Bhagavatam's conclusive words, Vedanti tat tattva. This is also the conclusion of the mantra in the Chandogya Upanishad, Ekam Eva Dvitiyam. A devotee knows that there is oneness in diversity. The mantras of the Shastras do not support the monistic conclusions of the impersonalists, nor does Vaishnava philosophy accept impersonalism without variety. Brahman is the greatest, he who includes everything, and that is oneness. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.7, Matak parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. There is no one superior to Krishna himself. He is the original substance because every category emanates from him. Thus, he is simultaneously one with and different from all other categories. The Lord is always engaged in a variety of spiritual activities, but the monist cannot understand spiritual variety. The conclusion is that although the powerful and the power are one and the same, within the energy of the powerful there are varieties. In those varieties there is a distinction between the different parts of one's personal self, between types of the same category, and between types of different categories. In other words, there is always variety in the categories, which are understood as knowledge, the knower, and the knowable. Due to the eternal existence of knowledge, the knower and the knowable, devotees everywhere know about the eternal existence of the form, name, qualities, pastimes, and entourage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotees never agree with the monists' preaching of oneness, unless one adheres to the conceptions of the knower, knowable, and knowledge. There is no possibility of understanding simple variety, nor can one taste the transcendental bliss of spiritual variety. The philosophy of monism is an adjustment of the Buddhist philosophy of voidism. In a mock fight with Sri Advaitacharya, Sri Nityananda Prabhu was refuting this type of monistic philosophy. Vaishnavas certainly accept Lord Sri Krishna as the ultimate one, and that which is without Krishna is called Maya, or that which has no existence. External Maya is exhibited in two phases: Jiva Maya, the living entities, and Guna Maya, the material world. In the material world there is Prakriti, material nature, and Pradhana, the ingredients of material nature. However, for one who becomes Krishna conscious, the distinction between material and spiritual varieties does not exist. An advanced devotee like Prahlad Maharaj sees everything as one, Krishna. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 7.437, Krishna graha grihitatma na veda jagadi idrisham. One who is in full Krishna consciousness does not distinguish between things material and spiritual. He takes everything to be related to Krishna, and therefore spiritual. By Advaya Gyan Darshan, by Advaya Gyan Darshan, Srila Advaitacharya has glorified pure devotional service. Srila Nityananda Prabhu herein sarcastically condemns the philosophy of the impersonal monist and praises the correct non-dual philosophy of Sri Advaita Pracharya. Okay, we'll take 3 from outside and 3 from inside, in that order. Outside People's Party, Mukharvind.
Maharaj, one thing I noticed that the humility, like there's so many places, the humility is personified, and yeah, I noticed that how they were chanting the Narasimha mantra when the son was not. He was not able. He was out of consciousness, so they started immediately chanting the Narasimha prayer. So it's bona fide in that way. That whenever we are in.
Yeah, it's there in Bhagavatam. Apana samsrutin goran yanama vipashonkraran tata sadyo vimucheta yabhibheti swayambayam. Specifically said there, the very first chapter of Bhagavatam, that when there's fear, danger, anything in the material world, one should take shelter of the name, because Krishna will save one. He's there, present in his name. He's feared by fear personified. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it at the end of the Radha Krishna bowl. He says, what's the last line? Jai Saklavi Pod Bhakti Minon Bolinjakon Om Nangai. When that name is chanted, then all the fear will go away.
Yes, Maharaj. And another thing, yeah, I found that...
okay, so there's 3, so you're taking 2 of your... They're called stacking them. They're stacking them up. Okay, go ahead, Namachintamani.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Just a reflection, we read in one verse that if a previous Acharya has already written about something, then there is no need to repeat it for personal sense gratification or to outdo the previous Acharya. And I was just remembering that in our previous meetings of the book production team, I remember that you instructed us to do research on what had been written on a particular topic before you wrote on it. So I remember we were doing that research, and I was appreciating that you were following this exact principles.
Oh, thank you for noticing. You get one more outside there. there's a hand way in the back. It looks like that is somebody in the effulgence. Who is that?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I was just reflecting that if Prabhupada's purport is not given if somebody is reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, so, and these conversation which is a mock fight, we could end up taking a side of what is right or wrong. So it's I feel it very enlivening that we have a detailed discussion from Prabhupada. Otherwise, even the description could lead us to taking a side which could be even offensive.
Yeah. Some people erroneously, Prabhupada points this out, people erroneously think that they're actually fighting. And Vrindavan Das Thakur mentions in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, specifically when you see a difference in when Vaishnavas have a difference of opinion, don't take sides. Makes life easier, right? You can thank me later. Okay, 3 from inside. Yes, Ekachakra Pran was first, and then we have Lokaram. Go ahead.
Being visited by Sagar Swami this morning reminded me of a personal experience. In 2019, I was a new bhakta and was here in Vrindavan, and I happened to share a rickshaw with him. And during that ride, I asked him, because I had been hearing from several bona fide spiritual masters at that time, how do I know who's my spiritual master? And his answer was something to the effect of, whoever's voice you want to hear every day for the rest of your life. And seeing him this morning reminded me of that, and I'm just so grateful that I get to hear your voice every day here and every day since then. Hare Krishna.
What year was it when you walked in here?
That was the same year. It was like a few days before that.
I was in Keshav Bharti Maharaj's room, and I saw some effulgent being walk into the courtyard. And I looked out there, and he's big, he's American, this big smile, and I thought, I know him. So I went out there and said, Hari Bol, and he said, Hari Bol. And then I thought, well, maybe I don't know him. But you sat in here and you were taking copious notes, and because you were writing a book about your experience coming to the Dham, and I'm so grateful to Lord Chaitanya for sending you through the doorway and me being right there. Hare Krishna. Okay, Lokaram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This is from a little earlier today, but it's been on my mind. This commentary from Srila Prabhupada about how Lord Chaitanya was very subtly hinting that Damodar Pandit should stop correcting him, and it's always, whenever the corrections are coming, it's based on Shastra, and we see there's devotees like that in our movement, that they find the Shastra and then they try to kind of, hey, don't do like that, you shouldn't be doing like that. But it's misapplied, and so we have to be very careful when we try to correct others.
Can you say more about how it's misapplied, if it's Shastra and they're straightforwardly presenting it?
Well, Krishna gives an analogy in the Bhagavad Gita where he says that the Vedas are like so many different wells, but the knower of the Vedas is like a river. And so all the purposes of the Vedas can be accomplished only by one who knows the Vedas. So to be very careful, because the Vedic scriptures are so vast, and they deal with karma and jnana and bhakti, and we shouldn't ever try to put in the hierarchy of principles, we should never try to put a principle related to karma or jnana over the principles of devotional service. So we have to keep that hierarchy intact, and it takes maturity and realization in order to do that properly. So Lord Chaitanya was not pleased with the taking the lower principle and trying to put it on top of a higher principle.
Nice insight.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare. Madhav for the trifecta.
In text 176, it says, Sarup, Damodar, and Jagannatha again and again offered the Lord some food. Thus they behaved affectionately with the Lord. This was very, very uncommon. Like, why is it uncommon to behave affectionately with the Lord for them?
It was one of those times, you know, when something breaks out spontaneously, like at a festival or something. Like one time I was sitting with Giriraj Maharaj. It was in our old temple, which was typically about 101 degrees with no air conditioning, and Janmashtami, and that there had been an Abhishek, and all they had in the temple for some reason for months was these tiny little cups about that big. And then they kept bringing us little cups of Charnamrita and lining them up. And Maharaj was bringing more. And it just became a kind of a gleeful moment, because we were just sitting there drinking Charnamrita out of tiny little cups, which could have been, you know, reminiscent of another planet or lifetime. And it's like, how did that happen? How does it just happens spontaneously? So uncommon means it was spontaneous, and it wasn't something that they do every day, that, you know, okay, let's be all happy and put extra prasadam on the person's plate. It just kind of happens. And those types of things happen in the context of Vaishnava association. You just get carried away in some kind of bliss, and then next thing you know, things that you never normally wouldn't see in their interactions are happening between people, and especially there may be superiors and others who are slightly acting out of character just because they're carried away by the bliss. That's kind of the idea.
May I add something to that?
Yes.
I was there also, and they had put they were bringing the little cups, and Maharaj was sitting there, and he just said, "Line them up." Just the way he said it. It was so endearing.
Yeah, great memory. Okay, that's 3. You're going to spill the banks, and we'll be at deficit on the inside. See what I'm saying? Okay. Nityananda Prabhu continued, "You are such a monist, and now I'm eating beside you. I do not know how my mind will be affected in this way." Purport: Sangat sanjayate kama. One develops his consciousness according to society and association. What a mantra. As Srila Nityananda Prabhu admits, a devotee should be very careful when associating with those who are not devotees. When asked by a householder devotee what the behavior of a devotee should be, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asat Sangatyag e Vaishnav Achar, Sri Sangi Eka Asadu Krishna Bhakta Ara. A Vaishnava devotee should simply discard intimate association with non-devotees. In his Upadeshamrita, Srila Rupa Goswami has described the symptoms of intimate relationship in this way: Dadati pratagunati kuhyam akyati prichyati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam. The words bhunkte bhojayate indicate that one should eat with devotees. One should carefully avoid eating food offered by non-devotees. Indeed, a devotee should be very strict in not accepting food from a non-devotee, especially food prepared in restaurants or hotels or on airplanes. Srila Nityananda Prabhu's reference in this connection is meant to emphasize that one should avoid eating with Mayavadis and covert Mayavadis like the Sahajya Vaishnavas, who are materially affected. Thus they both went on talking and praising one another, although their praise appeared negative, for it appeared as if they exchanged ill names. Thereafter, calling all the Vaishnavas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed Mahaprasadam as if sprinkling nectar. At that time, the mock fights between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu became more and more delicious. After taking their lunch, all the Vaishnavas stood up and chanted the holy name of Hari, and the resounding noise filled all the upper and lower planetary systems. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered flower garlands and sandalwood pulp to all his devoted associates. The 7 persons headed by Swarup Damodar, who were engaged in distributing prasadam to others, then took their meals within the room. Govinda saved some remnants of food left by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and kept them carefully. Later, one portion of these remnants was delivered to Haridas Thakur. The remnants of food left by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were later distributed among devotees who begged for them. And finally, Govinda personally took the last remnants. The fully independent Supreme Personality of Godhead performs various types of pastimes. The pastime of washing and cleansing the Gundicha temple is but one of them. The next day marked the performance of the festival of Netrotsava. This great festival was the life and soul of the devotees. After the bathing ceremony of Lord Jagannath, during the fortnight before the Rath Yatra ceremony, the body of Lord Jagannath, having been washed, needs repainting. This is known as Angaraga. The Netrotsava festival, performed gorgeously in the early morning of the Nama Yovana day, constitutes the life and soul of the devotees. Everyone was unhappy for a fortnight because they could not see the deity of Lord Jagannath. Upon seeing the Lord at the festival, the devotees were very happy. On this occasion, greatly happy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took all the devotees with him and visited the Lord in the temple. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to visit the temple, Kashishvar walked in front, checking the crowds of people, and Govinda walked in the rear, bringing the sannyasi's pitcher filled with water. The karanga is a kind of water pot, especially carried by Mayavadi sannyasis, and generally carried by all other sannyasis. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went toward the temple, Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati walked in front of him, and at his 2 sides walked Swarup Damodar and Advaita Acharya. That's a nice picture for one's mind, isn't it? With great eagerness, all of the other devotees followed them into the temple of Lord Jagannath. Out of great eagerness to see the Lord, they all neglected the regulative principles, and just to see the Lord's face, went to the place where the food was offered. There are many regulative principles of deity worship. For example, one is not allowed to enter the room where food is offered to Lord Jagannath. But in this case, being very eager because of not having seen the Lord for 15 days, all people overruled the regulative principles and entered the room. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very thirsty to see the Lord, and his eyes became like 2 bumblebees drinking the honey from the lotus-like eyes of Lord Jagannath, who is Krishna himself. The eyes of Lord Jagannath conquered the beauty of blossoming lotus flowers, and his neck was as lustrous as a mirror made of sapphires. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu usually saw Lord Jagannath from a distance, standing behind a column of Garuda, the column of Garuda. But because he had not seen Lord Jagannath for 15 days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt great separation from him. In great eagerness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu crossed the meeting hall and entered the room where food was offered, just to see the face of Lord Jagannath. In verse 210, this action is called Maryada Langana, a violation of the regulative principles. This indicates that one should not come very near a superior. Both the Lord's deity form and the spiritual master should be seen from a distant place. This is called Maryada. Otherwise, as it is said, familiarity breeds contempt. Sometimes coming too near the deity or the spiritual master degrades the neophyte devotee. Personal servants of the deity and the spiritual master should therefore always be very careful, for negligence may overcome them in their duty. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eyes have been compared to thirsty bumblebees, and Sri Jagannath's eyes have been compared to blossoming lotus flowers. The author has made these comparisons in order to describe Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while the Lord was deeply absorbed in ecstatic love for Lord Jagannath. I'll just take a moment to remember a dear godbrother of ours, Paramahamsa Prabhu, who was a Swami, and also acted as Prabhupada's servant for some time, secretary, and he and Sri Kirti Prabhu traveled with Prabhupada quite a bit. And we talked, once we went up to where he lived with Sri Kirti, and that was when Shruta was writing his book, I think. So he was interviewing Paramahamsa. And they were remembering things from their travels and their serving Prabhupada. There's one very clear impression, not just from those two, but also from other God brothers I know that served Prabhupada closely, his personal body, or was close to him in traveling and so forth, was sometimes people think of it as an idyllic situation, being that close to Prabhupada, but although of course it is an ideal kind of situation that you get to be with the spiritual master, it was anything but easy. It was very difficult because Prabhupada was constantly engaged in devotional service, and one had to be ready at every moment, 24 hours a day, to make sure that he had whatever facility he wanted. And one may not notice how many gaps one takes during the day for one's own entertainment or whatever, until one gets into a situation where you have to be on call 24 hours a day. And it could be very heavy, the experience of just seeing the gap between Prabhupada and oneself. And so that kind of service, being close, I would say, oh, I wish I was there. Even when God Brother was telling how he said it was one of the hardest things he ever did, because of what I just described, of that relentless adherence to and concentration on Krishna, devotional service, taking care of the necessary at every second. That brings us to 1 o'clock, so we'll take a little break until 4. And we'll start up at 3:59 and continue our reading of the chapter of the cleansing of the Govardhana temple. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Gauranitai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, Radha Madhav Astasaki, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Govinda. If you so desire, please give us spiritual intelligence to interact with the Lord and His devotees in such a way that is pleasing to you and to them. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpadrishya kripasinabhe vichapatitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nantagori Vaishnavi ki jai. Now we have the ceremonial moving of the chairs, and you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Hare Krishna.